every aspect of government, every ministry of the government, every office of the government is touched by the budget. I can't think of a single other event in government which touches every aspect of governance.
Perhaps the country's most important annual statement is delivered by the Finance Minister of India within the space of a few hours on the last working day of February. Yet, the process of crafting India's budget begins almost 6 months in advance with the issuance of the budget circular in September. As Finance Minister P. Chidambaram now prepares to deliver his 8th budget speech in Parliament, we unravel what goes into the making of India's annual budget.
Starts sometimes in early September, when the budget division in the Department of Economic Affairs in the Ministry of Finance, they issue what is popularly known as the budget circular. It's issued to all spending and revenue generating entities within the Government of India.
The Ministry of Finance seeks from the line ministries or departments is how much would they require for the next year and what is their estimated revenue for the next year. Revenue being only from departments like telecom, post, etc. Not many departments and ministries would have revenue streams.
So estimates of the expenditures and estimates of the non-tax receipts we're talking about. Because the tax receipts are done in different separately, not through the budget circular process, And it also gives the timelines as to what should be received by what time. And these timelines are adhered to very, very strictly.
The budget circular therefore sets in motion a process of extensive consultations across the government machinery. It involves the Finance Ministry and all other departments and ministries of the Government of India, as well as the Planning Commission. And broadly, the consultations are held to determine the possible expenditure of these departments and ministries in the coming fiscal, along with their contributions to the government's coffers.
Expenditure side, the entire exercise relating to non-plan expenditure is by Ministry of Finance, and plan and any meetings, any debate, any discussion, deliberations relating to plan side are held between line ministries and the Planning Commission.
The first exercise starts with regard to assessing the internal and extra budgetary resources of public sector undertakings.
Involving representatives of the companies, the respective ministries, the Finance Ministry and the Planning Commission, these discussions eventually cover every public sector undertaking under each ministry. These estimates are then totaled and are together known as the internal and extra budgetary resources, IEBR. Concurrently, another process is initiated at the Planning Commission to ascertain the gross budgetary support, which along with the IEBR constitutes what is known as the total central plan outlay.
There is a huge tug of war between Ministry of Finance and Planning Commission on this, and of course it should be linked to the annual plan, it should be linked to the 5-year plan, but often it is really as to who is more powerful, whether it is the Finance Minister or the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission at that point in time.
Idea is essentially to identify the requirement of the ministry for their various schemes and also evaluate and critically examine whether some schemes need to be phased out or some schemes need to be strengthened.
The end of it, golden figure is arrived at called the gross budgetary support. That means that all the ministries and departments will now go seek their plan estimates or plan allocation for the next year within that total sum, which is called gross budgetary support.
At the same time, work also begins on the estimates of non-plan expenditure, which includes the spend of ministries such as defence, allowance salaries and pensions, as well as subsidies.
75% of your total money or 70% of your total money goes to meet the non-plan expenditure. And the problem is that the nature of non-plan expenditure is inflexible. About 80% of the total non-plan expenditure is inflexible. It cannot be, it is not something like I drop the scheme or I take up the scheme. If you have to say pay salary and allowances, you will have to pay salary and allowances. You will have to spend minimum amount of defence expenditure, you will have to spend defence expenditure. You will have incurred subsidies, only discretion part is the subsidy part.
It's a very detailed exercise because each spending ministry and department also has to go down further to their field formations and goes down to the smallest of villages where the Government of India has some the sort of front office, etc. And then it comes up from that grassroots level as to how much expenditure will a village X require on such and such scheme. It goes right up to the ministry department, so they also need time. So it does take that much time, but by the end of December, the expenditure, more or less the expenditure, the details are firmed up by more or less by the end of December.
But understanding expenditure is only one side of the budget exercise. The government still needs to estimate the extent of revenue that it is going to generate before undertaking the great balancing act that is central to budget making. And that is no easy task.